Hi, I'm Jean Marie from Team Vuo. If you're new to graphics, you might feel a little confused or overwhelmed with Vuo's ability to input, create, and mix images and 3D objects, and the special terms that are used when working with graphics. In this tutorial, we're going to lay some groundwork for you. Vuo has three main types of nodes for working with graphics: images, layers, and 3D objects. Images are pictures. They could be photographs or computer-generated artwork. You can load external images into Vuo using Vuo's Get Image node. We have a short tutorial displaying images that explains how to do that. Images only have height and width, not depth. They are defined as 2D objects. In Vuo, width is defined along the x-axis and height along the y-axis. Images don't have a z-axis since they have no depth. We'll look at these axes a little later in the tutorial. Layers are a special graphic type that functions much like images, except you can combine layers together, so the layers are seen as if they were stacked on top of one another. Unlike images, layers cannot be input into Vuo. Layers must be created from images or made inside Vuo. Let's create two layers and combine them. I'll use a Make Colored Layer node first. I'll put it on the canvas and pick the color using the Color Picker input port. Then, to see the layer, I'll have to use a Render Layers to Window node. Render is a graphics term that simply means display. I'll connect the two. Since Vuo uses events to cause things to happen, I'll add a Fire on Start node. And connect that up to the Make Colored layer. Now see what happens when I run it. I get a window filled with the yellow color that I wanted. Let's add an image. You can see I've already put a Get Image node on the canvas, and I'm using an image from my desktop. Now, Get Image will output an image, but I need a layer. So I go to the node library, and I'm going to use the Make Layer node. The Make Layer node will receive an image and convert it to a layer. Now, you may notice that this says Make Layer Real Size as the class name. If I wanted to make an image of a different size, I'd have to use the Make Scaled Layer node. But I want the image at the actual size. So we're going to take this image to image. We're going to take the layer, we're going to add it here. And because in Vuo you need events to get things started, we're going to need another cable to our Get Image node. And now we're going to run our composition. And you can see we did get our Vuo logo on top of our yellow background. Notice the order of cables as they go into the Render Layers to Window node. The color layer appeared behind the image layer. The image layer was in front of it. If I switch these two cables, you wouldn't be able to see the image. All you'd see was the colored layer. Before we get started, I'm going to expand the input drawer. Now we're going to add text to our composite image. To do that, we're going to use a Make Text Image node. So we'll put this on the canvas. Again, we're going to need another Make Layer node. So here, we're going to do a Command C to copy, a Command V to paste. So we have a duplicate Make Layer node. We're going to connect it up, but I want it to say is fun. And another cable. And we're going to run our composition. You can see is fun on top of our logo. Now let's move that text down so that it's not immediately on top of the logo. To do that, we take a look at the center, and the center is x0, y0. Since y is height, we're going to put in a minus 0.5 to see if we can move the text image down. And let's see if we can use our font picker to make the text a little bigger. Let's try 36. Oh, now let's run the composition. And we get Vuo is fun. As I mentioned earlier, the position and size of 2D and 3D objects are defined in Vuo using Vuo's coordinate system. Travis explains it in detail in the tutorial Displaying 3D Objects in Vuo. But just as a quick introduction, this is a diagram of Vuo's coordinate system. As I mentioned, x is width, y is height, and z is depth. Width is defined as 1 unit to the right of the center point and 1 unit to the left for a total width of 2. The y-axis is proportional, and if the window is square, the height is 2 units. We've covered images and layers in this tutorial. Now we'll take a look at 3D objects. As the tutorial on displaying 3D objects explains, displaying objects in 3D space is called a scene. So in order to view 3D objects in a window, we need to render the scene to window. If you want to bring in one or more 3D objects from a file, you would use the Get Scene node. You can also make objects in Vuo. For example, the Make Cube node or the Make 3D Object from Image. Notice that the center of the Make 3D Object from Image node has 3 dimensions, x, y, and z. What does that mean for an image? It means that the image with width and height becomes like a piece of paper. A piece of paper suspended in 3D space. It now has a front and a back. What we think of as the image is only on the front side of the paper. When it becomes a 3D object, that means you can flip the image over if you wanted, something that doesn't make sense with a 2D object. However, there is nothing on the back of the image, so when it's flipped over, you won't see anything. The tutorial on displaying 3D objects goes into detail on how to manipulate a 3D object made from an image in 3D space, so I won't cover it here. In this tutorial, we've talked about taking an image and turning it into a 3D object. You can also take 3D objects and turn them into an image, like taking a picture. You can do this with the Render Seed to Image node. You can input multiple objects and output an image. So to recap, in Vuo you can work with images, layers, and 3D objects. You can take 2D images and combine them using layers. You can take layers and form composite images. You can turn images into 3D objects, manipulate 3D objects, and you can take a picture of 3D objects to create a 2D image. I hope this tutorial begins to explain how Vuo can help you be creative with graphics. If you'd like to learn more about VUO development or our plans for VUO, you can check out vuo.org. And we hope that you'll consider becoming a part of the VUO community and supporting VUO by purchasing a subscription. Thanks so much for checking out VUO, and we look forward to seeing what you can create.